Hi, welcome to Living in Between Worlds. We are a community of first and second generation immigrants and allies where we actually come together as a group where we can feel supported, start talking about things that aren't usually talked about, especially coming into a new country or even just that lived experience of a person who's experienced immigration with their families or friends or even just neighbors. Like, here's a place where we can feel safe. And here today, we're talking about career changes as an immigrant. And it's a really important topic because people, especially who's grown up here in North America, don't realize the difficulties that come along when you're coming into a new country. I mean, we complain about just ourselves getting work. I can't imagine navigating career changes or thinking about things, especially coming from another country with different types of cultures and different types of ways of being alone. So it's really important for us to come together. We come here bi-weekly and we talk about topics like this so that it can be out there in the world so you don't feel alone going through this struggle. It is a very lonely process, just navigating the two worlds, so your own world where you came from and then the new place where you're living right now. So it's about time that we're having this discussion. I'm really excited to have Sonia here to lead our discussion today around career changes as an immigrant. So I'll tee it off to you, Sonia, to kick off.
Yay! Thank you so much for that introduction, Stephanie, and thank you all for allowing me to do this topic, to talk about this topic. And I just want to make sure that you hear me well because I'm kind of testing a new micro. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I think you're totally right. I mean, I'm super happy that we have this group where we're talking about, both the logistics of navigating the world as an immigrant or as the children of immigrants, and also to talk about the deep topics as well. And my interest in career changes. It's I mean, it's because I have noticed a couple of things. I think it's very important that you mention all the effort that's required for newcomers to this country. This is something I'm constantly, grateful to my parents for having done. But then there's also that part where even when we're a second generation immigrant, or even when we like I came here when I was like 15, so I like to call myself 1.5 generation immigrant because I lived kind of like half my life there. I have enough in Venezuela. I have enough reference points and frameworks of mind that connect me to that country. But then I also have lived like the other half of my life here. And so I'm kind of like in between the two. But something that I have noticed with regards to career is that we tend to inherit a lot of the expectations and a lot of the rules from our parents, and that, regardless whether we came here a little bit older, or if we were born here. And so I wanted to have kind of like a holistic discussion on career, and just begin maybe with asking you all the question, since we all come from different cultures and we're all kind of like slightly different backgrounds, different ages, and so on. I'm super curious to hear from each one of you. What were some of like the career expectations that you had in your particular culture and in your particular family, and perhaps your experience conforming or breaking those rules. So whoever wants to go first can share, and then you can call the next person, and I can go at the end. So whoever wants to start.
Well, I can start just answering this question. Like my family's expectation about career is, if you don't go to university, you are nobody. Like, there is no way that you can thrive in life if you don't have education, and way better if you reach a good grade in the private education. And because in my country, unfortunately, like, the public education doesn't have like really good reputation, and I don't know why, because the same teachers that you have in the private ones earning more money are the same ones teaching in the public system. But regardless of that, like I can see, and it's interesting to mention these both systems of schooling, because I can see, and I know Stephanie would love my comment. Private schools are so good at training you to go through the capitalism and be assimilated on that space where you are welcome in the society, because you start like performing under that structure from a really young age. But yeah, like answering your question totally was, you won't be enough. Like there is no way that you can own a house or travel or have like a real quality of life if you don't study. So forget about just only your bachelor's, like go for the master's, go for the PhD. And if you have to have 3 other jobs and keep studying, it's good. And actually it's not good, it's required.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at all of us, not all of us made it, so you have to do it. That's a family sacrifice for you. So yeah, it's heavy.
Totally. Thank you for sharing that. And sorry, I totally said that. Like I totally said, like go with the next person, but I'm like, damn it, I want to say something before we kind of lose the thread. So sorry, Stephanie, I will be with you right in a second. But yeah, I totally love what you're saying, Nuria. And just to remind any, our audience, Nuria, where are you from? If we can just kind of circle back to where we're from, just in case there's people,
Absolutely.
tuning in for the first time.
Yeah, I come from Mexico. Made in Mexico.
Nice. I love it. But yeah, definitely this divide between private and public school, it's just so big. And I went to public school here in Canada, and I can definitely relate to what you're saying about that stigma a little bit. And I think my parents felt kind of guilty that they were like, "Oh, we sent her to like public school," and it's definitely yeah, all that kind of like systemic racism. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's still very much present with regards to that. So it's really, I'm glad that you brought that specific divide. And now I will go with Stephanie for your share.
Funny, I think your dog would like to give some feedback.
Totally, I'm like muting myself. I'm like.
So I'm a second generation immigrant. My mom and dad immigrated from the Philippines in the 70s. And I think I think all of us are probably the same, but there's a lot of layers too. It's not just only the societal expectation. So like my mom, like Filipinos are very influenced by colonial education system, especially the American one. My mom worked in healthcare, and she had expectations for me to get into sciences and become a doctor from a young age. I remember when I was 6, I was like, I want to be a paleontologist. I love dinosaurs. They're like, that's not going to make money. Go back to do this. Or like, I'm like, I'm going to be an anthropologist. I said that in university. That's not going to make money. Think about it again. So everything was skewing towards sciences, and the pressure was really high. So like with the grades and stuff, but then coming towards the end of school and university, I'm like, so mom, are you going to help me out to pay for my master's or other education? She's like, no, you're on your own. And in my undergrad, I had to pay for it myself. I had to go to school and pay and work at the same time. And everything was a lot of pressure, but then at the same time, everything was on my shoulders. So the layers would be like, oh, if my mom went through hardship, I have to go through hardship too, as the eldest. I have to strive for myself. It's not paved easy for me. And also like thinking about, God forbid, I became an entrepreneur. What kind of thing is that? Like, oh my gosh, why don't you go and get a job, full-time job? I remember my mom telling me, you should go get a full-time job as a secretary at the hospital because it's steady and you can get money and a pension. And I'm like, you mean I'm going to leave my business to go work full-time at something that makes so much less money? Because like being an entrepreneur is not valid. It's not recognized. They don't really can't see that benefit. So it's like there's a lot of layers when it comes to being like a second generation immigrant, like school was very valued, but I haven't even used it. So it's like, it was a very costly pressure of like, you know, tens of thousands of dollars for something that was never really true to me. And then that's like, do you disappoint the parents because you want your parents to be proud of you? And then I know they went through a lot of struggles, but at the same time, do you want to dim your light and your dreams in order to sacrifice yourself in order to take care of the family? And it's a really tough situation to be in. Okay, thank you for listening. I'm going to tee off Yendra next.
Yeah, I love this question. I think it's just good to acknowledge that our family just want the best for us in the way they see, right? And it tends to be, I guess, prioritizing security, safety. They don't want you to go through hardship, you know, so they want to take the safe, easy path. But of course, that's never the path of your soul. And I just want to really acknowledge that we come from a history where there was a lot of knowledge kept from us. So the value of knowledge is like that intrinsic appreciation for it, you know. But at the same time, it is skewed or put upon a pedestal this reverence for institutionalized education, right? Where it's all in your heads and it's really brainwashing, you know. I love Nuria mentioned last time we talked about, oh yes, you can do this paper or whatever it is, PhD, and you elevate yourself because you're studying these people from, and now you're this expert, right? So it has kind of its own life form to it, and you don't realize you're kind of being absorbed or eaten up by it, not even know it, because you're just so entrenched. And then you have seen, you know, generation of people, you know, having a bachelor degree is not enough anymore. Where before, you know, just maybe finish high school, whatever, you know, like time has changed. There's like so many massive people choosing that route, but you really are now lacking people with trade skills, you know, kind of hands-on. Now you're gonna and then you create another market where people, so I guess I'm just painting a picture that sometimes we are driven by these problem-solving mechanisms of protecting and ensuring the safety of your future, right? You mentioned have a safe, secure job or a government job, or instead of going out and pursuing your dream. And it's really because it's scary. It's scary. You know, parents don't like children when they may go and do something that's risky and scary and may get hurt. So, you know, these are just really kind of natural things. But of course, it's good that you challenge them, right? It's good to not always follow what you're told. Because how else can we really discover new things, you know? So I just want to kind of put in those layers to this. And then I'll speak for myself. So I'm actually first generation. I came here as a young child. So I am very fortunate. I'm sort of the most educated person in my family. And it doesn't mean that here's a little bit of misunderstanding, like as the entrepreneur or someone who is really well learned in academia, it doesn't always mean that you'll make more money being in academia, right? That itself. So it's really about the person's mind that will make what success is for them and what they'll be successful at. And really the power of that is to break all those barriers that people tell you what you can and cannot be, you know? So, yeah, I guess, you know, my family probably will want me to be something safe, like accountant or whatever. Even though I pursued, you know, medicine, but in an alternative field as a naturopath, they still revere like medically trained, and it took them a long time to even appreciate, you know, what I had to go through to acquire my skills and knowledge. So you see how much of it is just perception, right? Just perception. So it's really upon us to really break ourselves free from many of those perceptions and challenge what we're told. Because if you just follow, like people may have gone to university and realized, you know what, maybe I should just been a tradesman, been a carpenter. I could have made stuff, you know, I could really be. So yeah, and it's feels safer to go along where everyone will just look at you in a shining light, you know. But yeah, so that's my piece to that. And my background is my family came from mainland China, from the southern part. And I heard, I think Stephanie said your family, or is it Vanessa, about from Guangdong? So I'm from, my family's from there too. I think it was Stephanie. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Yendra. Nuria, and then Vanessa.
Thank you. Well, I just was taking some notes because I don't want to miss so many incredible comments you already made. So I love what Stephanie pointed out, because it's not only going to university and study, but it's like you cannot study any career, right? Like you have to choose wisely. Like actress, animation, what are you talking about? Like it's totally out of scope, right? Like I remember in Mexico, like if you're a doctor, lawyer, accountant, like, you know, something that seriously contributes to society, it's acceptable. Otherwise, forget it. I remember I wanted to study philosophy. I can't even tell you, my mom was like, what? And of course, not any job, right? You cannot take any job because it's, you know, the even though you don't belong to the high class in your society, if you're middle class, still is the family reputation. So not any job, right? Like you have to choose wisely, where are you working? And another thing that I would like to bring up on the conversation is the Canadian education versus your home country education. Because I can see, I studied college here, and I can see in my country the lack of encouragement to develop critical thinking and learning what others in the developed world already wrote about. So in Mexico, I remember we memorized what the white supremacist researchers discovered, right? Whereas what I noticed here in Canada was that my professors were quoting themselves. Like, this is my research and I'm gonna quote myself. For me, I was 37 and I was like, what? Can he do that? Why he's not quoting the guy from the book? You know, but it's a totally different space of learning. And the other one I want to just to share that is with this, I'm going to close my comment. I remember when I was in the second year of my program, and in order to accomplish my program, I had to study, I can't even remember which course of math. And I went to the registration office at the international department with attending international students. And they said, Nuria, if you want to study that class, to take that class, you have to bring your high school certificate. So 1 year after I started the program, they asked me for my high school certificate, right? When I register, I submit my bachelor's degree. No, that's not enough. You have to bring your high school certificate and you have to translate it with a certified translator and getting notarized. So I said, what if I bring you my master's degree certificate? Well, you can bring it. So I brought it and they say, no, because even though you study some, like, you know, financial things, we don't know really if you studied math. So we need your high school certificate. So I had to miss one term taking that class because of course I didn't have a high school certificate. I was 37. My high school certificate, I think, was like already pieces, right? In my mom's house. So those are additional challenges when you are facing with trying to figure out how to assimilate the new system, the new school system, and on top of it, all this bureaucracy as a newcomer.
My gosh, there's like what I love about this group is like we all come from so many different stories, different backgrounds. Like my mind is blown by what you just shared, Nuria. I definitely want to go back to learning more about your experience. So for me, I'm second generation. My parents, second generation immigrant. My parents were born and raised in Hong Kong, and they moved here when they were teenagers. So I kind of come from probably a different angle. My parents came here, and my dad had to like work 3 jobs. He didn't have the opportunity to have a university, like collegiate education. So, and same with my mom. She basically like they had us when we were really young, so they ended up like both working. So for me, I wasn't the eldest child in the family. There was myself, my sister, and then I have 2 other cousins. I have another cousin who's a little older than I am. But this is where like the 4 of us, we were just kind of like just told to just have a good education. And when you have a good education, then you'll be able to have a good job. Like, I think the comparison was that just, get a good education so that you don't have to like work 3 jobs like your parents did, or, and that was like the main focus was like, get a good education, right? And so what does that mean, right? And that for me, yeah, it was the pressure of like getting into university. But, as a teenager, you don't really know what it is that you want, right? Like, so, I mean, when Nuria was talking about all the prerequisites, right? It's like at that age, having to even choose all the right prerequisites, all the right kind of subjects to take so that you can get into university for a specific field or whatnot, that to me was already a lot of pressure. So I ended up going to college. I didn't end up going to university, but I wanted to get to university. And there was like the financial piece too, right? Like the best way to kind of like get to university is like to go to college first and then kind of step your way into it, right? But even then, when I got into college, it was like, what do I choose? What do I learn, right? So I think for me, just even getting a college education was like already, good job, Vanessa, well done kind of thing, right? Like, out of our family, you're the first one to receive college education. Like that to me was already kind of like, okay, this is good. And everything else was then looking at my peers and looking at what I was supposed to do kind of thing. And so for me, it was definitely interesting because I thought I was going into medicine as well, but then, human sciences, I was like, this is kind of interesting to me. I naturally kind of fell into it, but then I was like, okay, actually, it's not what I wanted to do. And so I got a lot of like, my dad would say, what do you mean you're changing your focus kind of thing, right? Like back then it was kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm changing. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to change. Right. And so I have to say, I was lucky in that way. Like I was able to actually follow my heart at that time and really kind of listen to myself and be able to, I mean, I had to pay for my own education. So I think that piece kind of helped in that sense. Like I worked and paid for my own education. So that was where it was like, well, this is kind of my path I get to choose. So I think, yeah, like when I look at my other Asian friends, they had the pressures and all that. But for me, I got to, I kind of summed it up to like, well, I'm a bit of a rebel, so I'm going to do things differently anyways. Right. So, yeah, in that sense, I guess I felt like I had a choice when I was younger. And so from there, it then helped me with my career choices as well. I was able to make my career, like different career choices along the way and really learn how to trust myself in that way. So that was a bit of my experience, but really at the end of the day, it was like the education piece that was like big. But in the end, I didn't end up using that education. I ended up doing something completely different. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Andrea?
I love what Sonia said about racism, in terms of if we use our hands to do work, is right. If we use our mind, there's that kind of bias. And really, we want both. And so I also noticed that then in my conditioning, I was judgmental in thinking that physical work is not as valuable somehow. And it's not true. These things, all these beliefs are not true, right? And it's just so crazy how the bureaucracy make us jump through hoops that are totally irrelevant. Like you say, you're 37. What the hell is gonna high school math gonna prove it? Like it's freaking ridiculous. And that's the absurdity. That's the friggin' absurdity of this whole created stuff. It's all bureaucracy and it's all focusing on irrelevant stuff. Because you really think about it. So what we have all demonstrated how some external force is telling us what we must be, and we're spending so much time and resources to make ourselves match and fit. So how the hell are we to tune into our souls? Because this is the thing. Like I love Nuria saying, like, her daughter now is like, okay, fine, no do homework. Like I'm not similarly, because if my kids don't want to, follow this path of going to it's I have to trust that if I give them confidence and believe in themselves, they'll friggin' find their way. Because here's the thing. You are tuned into specifically what you're drawn to. And really, you begin to be specialized in the way that you can tap into the energetic information of whatever field you get into. Because that information becomes really expansive to your capability of knowing it. Like you see people who are musicians, who are athletes, how did they become so specialized? Because they friggin' spend all their time and passion, love in learning all that. It will just come to them. But when we're so distracted, have to meet something outside, we're not tuned in. How can we be the expression of what we talked about in this call? Was it our call about? Yeah, it was. The seed. You are a seed. How do you fulfill that potential? Because you're nurturing with the right environment, the right nutrients, the right, you get it, right? So all this misses the whole mission of what we're here. Now we miss our connection to all that knowledge. And and I'll let you say more because I know I'm.
Did you want to go, Sonia, before I jump in?
I do want to share something because I've been taking like so many notes because there's so many, there's so many golden nuggets in this whole conversation. But something that Yendra just said very like recently right now really kind of spoke to me, and it kind of circles back. I'm gonna connect a couple threads here. I think part of the reason why I'm so fascinated by this thing of career and how we define career and what's the right career and so on, it's because it's been one of the, philosophical questions that I've had in my life. I really enjoy working, and like using my energy, to produce something and so on. And defining career for me was something super, super hard. And I totally want to acknowledge Vanessa, because Vanessa, you helped me actually. About last year, we had a conversation in your self-mastery collective. And I remember having so much shame about the idea that I have like 3 businesses. I'm very like multi-passionate, like human design manifesting generator, always with like 1,000 projects. And I play the bass, and I want to like learn to do like DJing and so many things. And I would always feel so much shame because, like Yendra says, the expectation is to specialize and to do it in a very specific way. It's like you go to university, you get it right, you better not spend any money on something wrong because that's shameful. And then you have to get paid a lot and like be really like have a good reputation and so on, and fit in this perfect box that kind of satisfies all that criteria. And in my mind, that thought kept coming in the background, but I had starting to observe it in the past few years. And I remember when I had that conversation with Vanessa, you were just so naturally acknowledging me and seeing me as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, and just like instead of seeing it as a bug, as a hindrance, it was just like something to celebrate. And I think like since then I have been working on kind of like believing, but just like to so openly be acknowledged in such a natural way, as like this is a person who's just very multi-passionate and she has like many businesses. That was just so beautiful, and it really helped me just further kind of dissolve that shame. So I wanted to acknowledge you for that, Vanessa. And I wanted to once again just remind ourselves and state the importance of having these conversations with other humans, because just sometimes being seen and being acknowledged by another human being can just do so much to your soul. And I always feel like in these conversations, week after week, we have transformations, even when we don't feel them right away. Even when it's not like always like, although I do have a lot of kind of aha moments during this time, and I'm like taking notes. But yeah, it's like for me, my journey has been really about like trying to fit in a box, and then being like, I have like 1,000 boxes. I'm probably just gonna move around and like do all those things. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. But let's go with Stephanie.
That's amazing. I love this chat. It's so great. I'm so excited every couple of weeks for every topic that comes up. And I wanted to just come about some topics that came up, just like the external factors. And I always bring it back to where we've been, because I love going all the way back in my ancestry and thinking about the whole concept of a career, or the whole idea of having a job. Okay, so back in the day when we all lived in these villages, and I'll say villages because my people did live in villages, we were born into roles. So some people were shamans in our villages. We were healers. We were born and initiated based by birthright, or the energy and the calling. And we didn't have to worry about, I have to go and do this in training, because you were chosen by a divine source or something. We already knew our sort of roles. We didn't have to go and navigate and worry that we're not enough, or find the sense of belonging to conform into a system created for us already. Our education was already just by nature. And we have to really think about with these structures of how we should be, or how we should be thinking about careers, how the children will be suffering from these ingrained ideas from colonialism that, like, I'm like, all the people, the millennials are suffering with hundreds of thousands of debt, like from school, chasing a dream from somebody that prescribed it for them in the past. Like I paid over $110,000 in debt from my school. And then it was crappy. I don't want to swear, but it was hard. And then you have the pressures of never feeling good enough to conform to these things that was never really true. And, people go into medicine and they're in their residency and they're like, you know what? I don't like this, but I spent $200,000 on this thing. And then they either go with it or they just drop it. And it's such a thing that we have to think about, like, how do we bring out these things in the future? How do we look at and be gentle with ourselves and not feel shame for being different, for something that has been ingrained in us in our DNA for hundreds of years, that we have to feel this sense of purpose and career. So I always like to take it back to our ancestry, where we've been. And I know Yendra loves it. So we have to acknowledge where these belief systems have come from.
Thank you, Stephanie. That is so good. I totally love how you circle everything back to the origins, and acknowledge that shame that so many people feel. And that's why I also said, like, because it's almost like the system is designed to feel shame one way or another. It's like, you don't go to university, shameful. You spend a lot of money on university, but then you change careers and you are someone who has all that debt for nothing, shameful. It's like, at some point, it's like, seriously, we just take all these beliefs like for granted and we just believe them all. There's no way to win, which is why, we just have to question everything. Nuria, and then Yendra.
Thank you. Well, I again want to go back to this point about how much colonialism is so grounded in the system, because when you come as a newcomer, your credentials are not enough because you're not Canadian, period. And if you want to change your career path, if you have that insanity of pretending to change your career path, you have to get another credential. So if you're really good at crossing the street, yes, you're really good. It's a gift. It's inside of you, but you have to get a credential because it's a cycle, right? Like it's a business cycle where you are trapped. So you can follow your dream, but you have to pay a price. So that's one thing. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, now that Stephanie brought this ancestry and visiting our ancestry, I remember one day my little one was probably 8. And she came back home so excited because it was the first time at school she learned about the indigenous peoples here in Canada. So she was so excited. She's like, oh my God, Mom. Like, she was just like, wow. So she called her dad and said, guess what, Dad? In Canada, there are like indigenous peoples. I cannot even tell you the silence on my ex-husband's end and on my face, because I was like, in which moment I never taught this girl how rich the indigenous peoples are in Mexico? In which moment I never mentioned to her the massive influence of the Aztecs culture till now, the Toltecs, the Mayas, like all of them. I was shocked. And I remember that within the Aztecs culture, every time that there was a newborn, the shaman delivers a message to the parents to tell them what was the mission of that baby. And that's why Aztecs had incredible warriors, incredible artists, incredible everything, because from a very young age, they channel that soul through their path. That's it.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
So beautiful.
I mean, don't you just feel constantly this barrage of things that's just distracting you? Like all you freaking want to do is this thing that if I did get to do that, I'd be happy. And it's simple, you know? It's so bloody crazy. And really, all the wisdom and knowledge that came from, ancient times, our ancestors, and they got it right. Like, we really have to pause. We're not heading in a good direction for humanity. We really have to pause. And it takes, like, I just had this, intuitive sense about, like, don't go with the current, like, I just felt like, turn away from the current. We need more people to turn away from that current, because the current is not where we want to go. And if we go there, we'll arrive and discover it too late that we were not meant to go here. So I love, what Stephanie brought up, what Nuria brought up. It's because that is the truth. That is the truth. That's it. And we know it. And the only thing is that we just didn't believe it or have the confidence in it, and then when you really figure it out, you get freaking mad but that's just like, it's so simple, right? And so, yes, as a community, having these conversations are powerful because it breaks up what people have been blindly thinking that is the truth, and don't even know. Like Sonia is sharing all those things about, if you do this and then you feel bad, oh, you're shameful. I mean, those are just sort of psychic judgments that we're feeling, and then we buy it, and then we're doing it to ourselves, just chop off those shackles and, like, free yourself, right? It's like you can do it psychically and an instant is done, So it is so important to ensure that we orientate this knowing and knowledge in the young people, in future generations. And we need to know our history. Those are two things I feel need to unite so that we actually know where we're meant to be going and not be controlled. And I want to go back to about how all these jobs, and you're conditioned. Think about it. They want workers, right? They get workers, right? You're conditioned, and then the kids are still taken from you. So you don't really have influence. Like, it's, see it. Thanks for listening.
Totally. Thank you for sharing, Yendra, and everybody. Yeah, I mean, no, you're totally right. Like, if we just keep going with the mainstream, the system, with everything that has always been done before, well, chances are we're going to recreate more of the same thing. And I'm totally I really love how in the space we bring that intersection of, yes, personal development, personal growth, and all this very inner journey, but we also always bring it back, way back, like Stephanie says. We bring it back to our ancestors, or we bring it back to the systems of, like, society, yeah, that is one way in which because my background is actually in political science, and that is one way in which it has served me, that university education, to see things in like a systemic way, because we can't separate the inner work from the ancestry, the systems, because I mean, all the thoughts that we think, all the beliefs, they were fed, they were programmed by someone in the first place. To understanding the origins and going way back can really just be helpful in helping us kind of decide and shape the kind of future, the kind of career, the kind of lifestyle that we want to have. And so in that context, since we have only a couple minutes left, I guess I kind of want to finish in a positive note and maybe go with a message of maybe share what would be some of your career advice for younger generations, for younger generations, or honestly for anyone who might be lost about these things, because I think you can be lost about career stuff even when you're like older. It can happen, anytime in your life. So maybe if we can just go around and share what would be your tips to find that uh, career harmony. I don't know what to call it. Like to feel like you have a good relationship with your career. So who wants to go first? Nuria.
Thank you. So I would say always honor that naturally you are a contribution to the world. Naturally, your existence is a contribution. And don't tie yourself to one thing, because as we are growing, we are changing. Your preferences change, your taste change, your skin change, all your persona changes constantly. So allow yourself to receive that change. And when you align that change with the contribution you are, you follow the path. And that's pretty much it. It's not black and white, it's be the change. And what is the career? Seriously, is irrelevant because everything comes together.
Oh my God, that was so good. I had like little like chills. Thank you, Nuria. Yendra?
Yeah, career is just a concept created. It's created, and then there's a path, and now you have to make yourself follow. I think we're born with natural gifts and talents, and interests. Things that, I mean, think about it. Some people love to study Beatles. Definitely not my thing, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just so fascinating. And think about what really, Nora saying we're a contribution, and not just we have gifts, but we're gifts to each other, because all the knowledge, all the things we know, how did they come about? Because someone went out and become a scientist and learn and absorb and know the truth to these things, and then brought it back and shared it, right? That's really how, and we'll continue to be that. And I personally feel some people know it very, very early, but for sure, by the time you're 7 or even 10 and younger, many people kind of know what is it they want to be and do, and that makes them happy and enjoy themselves and the time they're spending doing that thing, and even if you stray away, you find yourself coming back to it. And parents themselves can also, like, I know you can tell that your child is having certain aptitude or certain interest. You can tell, right? And you can see there's certain things they're drawn to. Some people can see multiple spectrums of color and light or sound, or right, all our senses, and it's just the broadness of how you will see the multi dimensions. And I would say, trust your heart. Truly, your heart knows. It knows. And the amazing thing is the heart also represents courage. So it does take a bit of courage, because you are creating a map for yourself, and it's your own. You can maybe look at someone's map and borrow something, but ultimately it's your own. So you are going to venture a journey that you are, whether it's climbing a mountain as the symbolism, it's your journey, and your heart knows you're in the right place or not.
Thank you, Yendra. Stephanie?
Gosh, I'll just go by my experience. Like if it's talking to young people, especially in high school or university, like if you are doing these classes and you're dragging yourself to do studying, there's a reason why it's not good. There's going to be some you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so excited. I don't feel like it's working for me. But like, you know, it kind of stems into my 20s too, when I was jumping into corporate life and I think this is the way, but you end up hopping jobs all the time. Like, yo, maybe it's my boss. I don't like the culture here. I don't like this thing in the same industry. There's a reason why you're doing it. So you really have to actually tap into your intuition. Like first, I would recommend to know what's safe for you. Make sure you pay your bills and your taxes. Like, you know, because we still have to navigate life instead of just dreaming and just hoping money comes. But at the end of the day, if you're feeling constricted instead of expansive, that should just be an indicator for you. And when you are doing it, be confident in the ability that you can figure things out. I always tell people when I train people in corporate life, I'm like, being resourceful and knowing how to connect with people, learning on the fly on the job or whatever career or mission you want to do, even if you're not making money, is the actual way for you to be successful in anything that you do. So be confident in your ability to figure things out, learn how to be resourceful and do things on your own, because maybe getting an extra master's degree over top of your degree or wherever you have may not be even needed if you've had the right context and the right mentors to teach you. And don't be scared of it, but just be confident in yourself. So I hope that helps. If that would have saved me a ton of money if I knew that when I was 18. So hope that helps you out.
So good and practical. Genius. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Vanessa.
There's so much gold in here. I think even just this little bit would be great to capture. Yeah, I think for me, like what really served me in navigating the different career changes and making decisions from that place of like speaking my truth and, you know, allowing society's rules to be, it's always come back to curiosity for me, like really allowing yourself to be curious about everything, like allow yourself to be flexible in that way. Even though like you may be finding yourself in a box right now, in a really restricted box, like where people are telling you what to do. This is where it's like, if I may offer to you, like that box doesn't have to stay that way. What you can do is take out parts of it, replace it with things that you love, things that fire you up, right? And slowly create your own box, slowly kind of like replace things. Like it's not like a cold cut, like, you know, like I'm just gonna shit on society and do things my way. Like there's a transition period for you to kind of like allow yourself to break those belief systems. And so what always worked with me was like anytime I felt any resistance, like similar to what Stephanie was saying, you know, like if you are feeling constricted, like question that, get curious about that. What is that resistance letting you know, right? Like for me, it's like, okay, there must be something either that I'm scared to do, that this is like, you know, that I want to do, that I haven't acknowledged, or it's like, oh, something's not right here. Like this isn't actually for me kind of resistance. And that's where it's like, I can open myself up to like questioning a little bit more as to what that is. So really allowing yourself to check in, be curious, and then it's not like you have to have all the answers right now, but even just by getting curious and asking yourself these questions, you're opening your mind up to receiving more possibilities, to be able to kind of like open up more doors for you to choose from. And you'll be surprised, because once you decide on something, like, yeah, everything else unfolds. Like there's going to be people that come into your life that will offer you kind of more insight as to what you're choosing, right? And then you get to make the decisions. But yeah, coming back to what some of the ladies have already said, like really going back to trusting your intuition and trusting your heart, like what really fires you up, go there and navigate it and see, and allow yourself to like have the openness of that it can change. Like I went from I went from, kinesiology to interior design to lighting design to coaching, right? Like, so it's like, they're all really different, but like, just allow yourself to see that one decision will lead you to another one, will lead you to another one, will lead you to another one, and keep opening doors. And really that's life experience, is we just get to experience whatever it is that we want to experience. So yeah, I think that's my 2 cents there.
So beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we still have Nuria and Yendra, but I just wanted to check with everybody if we're okay to do like a couple more minutes. And then after you two, we can close. Okay. Because then we also have, we're also going to tell people about, I guess we're doing like a facilitated call in next week. Okay. So we're going to share all of that briefly, and we can go Nuria, Yendra, and then we can close this conversation.
Thank you
Nuria.
thank you so much for that. Just 2 quick things. The first one is that just keep in mind that everything that you get in the formal traditional education is only a point of view. Every teacher's thought, it's a point of view. That's pretty much it. And the other thing is that be, honor yourself in a sense of, it's okay if you want to go to the formal education and just to make money. Like, really, don't feel ashamed because you want that. Like, we are not, I guess, recommending just, as Stephanie mentioned, like, be responsible, pay your taxes, all of those things, right? But if it's okay if you don't want to follow any kind of inner gift, and you, on your mind is, I want to be rich, and if for that I'm gonna be accountant, as far as you tap on the energy of what brings you joy, and if money brings you joy, go for it. Thank you.
True. As long as you're aware and you kind of like enjoy, you understand your reasoning and you're okay with that, for sure. There's definitely no judgment either side. If you want to go mainstream or non-mainstream, it's all good. Yendra.
Yeah, you're just where you are, right? And I mean, there's so much gem being shared here, and I love that Vanessa mentioned about the adventure, and also Stephanie mentioned a lot about how you can learn certain things, and it kind of takes you to the next thing, and don't feel like you're not adequate or qualified. Like, challenge some of those thinking instead of thinking you need a piece of paper to then certify, because often that just makes you feel like you are, but you still don't have the skills. You don't still have the life, the ultimate experience in life is what is truly more valuable, and the thing is, whether you have a paper or the skill, you still end up having to believe in yourself, right? So those are things definitely worthwhile working on. And the adventure piece is really useful because say you're interested in one thing and then you don't know where that will connect, and you're interested in another thing, you don't know how that connects. And I love the story about Steve Jobs, how he, kind of didn't attend classes, but was gravitated to attending this calligraphy class that they have, this amazing, and he gave us fonts. I mean, imagine a world where, the beautiful way you can choose the lettering, right? So you just don't know, let your heart, that's like your soul and spirit being expressed, through your heart, and you'll feel it whether it's expansive or it's like need to be constricted, protected. And so the information is always there. Just be willing to let it inform you, teach you. And just, again, I love Nuria bringing that in too, that, be where you are. Don't, the beating yourself up is going to hinder, right? And when the timing is right, maybe you meet up with somebody, like, you just don't know how this, seed will kind of grow and crack open the shell, and I just don't know. So just be and let the adventure happen.
Yay. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I totally love what you said about the there's no skipping the part in which you have to work on believing in yourself. I love that one. It's like, regardless of how many certificates, masters, how much money or whatsoever, you're still gonna have to go through that, and that's where, you know, the courage is required. So yeah, thank you everyone. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. So we're gonna wrap things up. We are gonna have a facilitated call. I guess I'm kind of you. Stephanie, do you explain these things usually? Should I?
I'll do it. I'll jump in.
Like, I don't want to like mess up the words.
All good. I can do it.
Yeah, like I'll give you guys the floor. And thank you so much for allowing me to ask you all these questions and for covering my topic. Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks, Sonia, for this amazing topic. Like, yeah, again, with this topic, we could do a part 2, a part 3, a part 4. Like, it can just keep going, right? Like, I feel like we only touched the surface of it. So I invite all of you to join us to go deeper and share your lived experience with us on February the 12th. It's a Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. This is going to be a closed facilitated call where we're going to be navigating similar questions. If anything, like maybe even a few more other questions. I know that Sonia had probably a whole list of questions that we didn't even get around to. So yeah, this is the space for you to be seen and heard. And we invite you to bring your stories and come share with us. So we look forward to seeing you there. The link is in the description already, so find it in the description wherever you're joining us from. And we will see you there. Thank you.
Thank you.